long-term trajectory with Zach Wilson coming off this kind of injury. Luckily, again, only a small tear in the meniscus, could have been a lot worse. But he also is a guy that has been reliant, not necessarily as a running quarterback, he does throw on the run a lot too. So how should the Jets be able to, when he does come back, should they still go full throttle with him? Do you think they're going to ease him back in? And long-term, how do you think this will impact the Jets and Zach Wilson going forward?
Sure. In terms of the easing, yes, the Jets are going to be overly cautious here with the injury timeline. There again, if you squint, Zach Wilson could be ready for Week 1 against the Baltimore Ravens. But I think what the Jets want to do is make sure that they don't rush him, because there's no rush to it. Now that we know it's not what the Twitter doctor said, a blown ACL and he's dead on the doctor's table for G.
How many?
Does everyone just want to be right? Does everyone just want to be first? Like,
Paul, I'm sorry to cut you off, but how many people? How many podcasts? Jets podcasts. During that game, that preseason game, the first preseason game of the season with the Eagles, how many people went up there and said, our season's over, we're going to be looking for a new quarterback in next year's draft, oh, bah humbug. And then all of a sudden you hear after the game, and you heard what Robert Saleh says, we did all the tests, it looks like his ACL's intact. So, and obviously they thought that about Mekhi Becton too, and they were wrong about that. So a lot of Jet fans were probably saying, well, you said that about Mekhi too, and look where he's sitting. But there was something that told me everything that I've heard, and I wasn't at the game, but in the back, in the locker room, everybody said that he was walking without a brace. He wasn't really limping anymore, and he wasn't grimacing. Usually when you do something your ACL, you're wearing that big boot or something like that. He wasn't wearing that. So there was something telling me that it wasn't as bad as it could have been. So that's all I wanted to say. I'm sorry.
No, and I agree, quite frankly. As far as I knew, as soon as Zach Wilson was injured, people were telling me that Jimmy Garoppolo was already on the team, flying to New York. I'm like, he is? Okay, welcome Jimmy G, I guess. I'm like, can we wait for the body to be cold, for Pete's sake? I mean, Christ. So there was a lot of that hoopla out there on all of that. And then, of course, again, the good news. Jet fans normally aren't used to getting good news twice in a week. Of course, Joe Klecko being a senior finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, long overdue. And then the Zach Wilson injury news coming within 48 hours of each other. Again, Jet fans are not used to that sort of thing. But overall, back to, Speedy Petey over there, Speedy Petey's question.
We'll call him Speedy Petey the Grease Ball, okay?
Grease Ball, I like that. You need to add that to your little nameplate there. There's more room if you just kind of slide over your hanging carcass over Citi Field a little bit to my left, your right. Maybe we can fit that on there. So get your team out of my people, and we can talk about making that happen. But in terms of the intermediate, again, the Jets are going to play it safe because there is no impending doom line timeline. They have Joe Flacco, who they believe in. So if Joe Flacco plays Week 1, they have no problem waiting to Week 2 on the road against Cleveland to getting him ready. Again, if they want to be super precautious, I think the absolute latest that he's going to play is Week 3. That'll be a home game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, if they really just want to wait till they're home and just play it out that way and be ultra safe, and of course the offensive line gets a continuity. They have not had that this offseason with all the new pieces. They could certainly wait till that point, but I don't think it will go any later than that. So they will play it precautiously. They believe in Joe Flacco. In terms of long-term, hell no. They're going to be riding Zach Wilson because, again, they drafted him number 2 overall to be the crazy bastard that he was at BYU, doing all the crazy throws where he escapes the pocket and improvisational skills to deliver on the plays that, of course, he will need those healthy knees to have that. Now, is there concerns with the same leg 10 months apart? Of course, 2 injuries to that same knee is always concerning, but at this point, there's no correlation between the two. The PCL is the PCL, and in this case, the bone bruise and meniscus injury are totally unrelated. Zach Wilson will just have to play his kind of ball. He can't play scared out there, and the Jets will not. Once he's back, he's back. He's going to be 100%, and no training wheels or anything of that nature will be coming in for Zach.
We are talking to Heavy Sports Jets digital reporter Paul Esden Jr. So why don't we go to the cornerback position? And DJ Reed, he got that big contract in the offseason. We expected that because Robert Saleh likes to bring his own guys, as Alexander came, and Rankins, another guy that knows the defense. So what are your thoughts with Sauce? You've seen Sauce play. You've seen Bryce Hall, who had a really good year in the first half of the season last year, and that kind of fell off in the second half, and that's why the Jets were looking for corners in the draft. And then obviously the slot position's filled too. You have Michael Carter, who looked really, really good before he got hurt last year from Duke. And then some of the other guys that they had, the Eccles of the world and all the guys that filled in. So where is this secondary at? And does the Jets think that this secondary could be the best secondary in the NFL?
100%. The talent is just night and day. Last year, the media was pounding the table for the Jets to please add some sort of veteran and someone from his past. Richard Sherman was available. Steven Nelson was another veteran that I remember Jet fans clamoring for last year. Please add somebody to this room. Bryce Hall, this unproven player. Brandon Eccles, a day 3 dart throw. Michael Carter, day 3 dart throw. Like, what the hell are the Jets going to do? They're going to get crucified and lit up during the season. Now, to their credit, while the overall numbers and analytics are not great, the Jets corners actually played fairly serviceable last year, all things considered, with these pieces that they kind of threw into the mix. They gained valuable experience. And now, after the Jets said, YOLO, we're going to invest all kinds of resources. DJ Reed, $33 million. Michael Carter returns in the slot. Jordan Whitehead, we talked about in terms of the safety, and bring back LaMarcus Joyner, and then Sauce Gardner. That now all those guys who were starting last year, Bryce Hall, Brandon Eccles, those guys are now backups, primary backups. So they feel really good, and the Jets believe in their building that they have the talent to be one of the best secondaries in the NFL with everything they have. They believe Sauce is a transcendent piece. They believe he could be a lockdown corner. He talks so much trash while he's on the field. It's infectious. He never gave up the touchdown college. And then the first thing we asked him when we were looking ahead to the season, he's like, I don't plan on giving one up in the NFL.
He hasn't given one up in the preseason either. He hasn't given one in.
Which he hasn't. He's not even targeted. They're going after other guys. And again, maybe I don't think that's going to be the case when we get to the NFL, the regular season. I think teams are going to be like, okay, let's see what this Sauce guy is all about. Because DJ Reed, while not as tall as Sauce,
good player.
He is a widely respected corner that has proven to be. He even said it when he was interviewed initially after being signed, that he puts up his numbers with the Jalen Ramseys of the world. So super confident guy himself. But I think NFL teams are going to test Sauce. And now maybe they're going to get burned when you touch that pot and you get a little bit of that sauce on your hand. But, that Sauce kid is looking like the real deal. He hasn't had a bad practice since he's been here with the Jets.
All right, so one of our fans have a question. Thoughts on the recent cuts? I'm surprised, but not really about them cutting Elijah Riley, but was shocked about Eddie Pinheiro. And also he thinks Mike White and Chris Streveler, what are your thoughts on the backup quarterbacks or third-string quarterback situation? Will they move on from one of them?
Yeah, Chris Streveler is Jesus, as far as I'm concerned. He is the second coming of the Messiah. New religions must be dedicated in his honor. Has anyone seen the CFL picture where he wins a Grey Cup championship? He's in a fur coat, cowboy hat, stogie in the mouth, and he's just dropping beer and wine all over his hairy body. Like, wow, what a guy. That's a QB1. I don't know how we haven't started this conversation here on the show.
Who needs a Zach Wilson's injury? We got Chris Streveler.
I know. Zach Wilson who? Chris Streveler, QB1. But, the thing is that Mike White has been living off the praise of the Hall of Fame game is what we call it. The Cincinnati Bengals game, he comes in, he's forced to start because of the Zach Wilson injury, and he has right up there. It's him and Cam Newton have the greatest QB debuts of all time. Now, Cam Newton, of course, number 1 overall pick. Mike White, like 4th, 5th, 6-year veteran, 27, former 5th-round pick of the Cowboys. So different circumstances, of course, with their debuts. But nonetheless, Mike White has this great game, but then everything else since then has been crap. And I just feel like everyone's afraid to say it because Jet fans were doing the Mike effing White thing where every restaurant he goes to, people are like, oh, that's Mike effing White. And he has like this cult-like Ryan Fitzpatrick cult following. But the problem is he hasn't done diddly crap since the Bengals game, and Streveler's just straight up outplayed him. And it's impressive because Streveler didn't get any team reps prior to that Eagles game. And then we're like, okay, that's a fluke. And then he does it again against the Falcons where the offense immediately looks better with him in it. And I think part of that is he's more closely correlated to a Zach Wilson in terms of his athleticism and things he can do. So that's more similar to Zach Wilson and thus should be an easier transition to the offense. So Streveler's been impressive, so impressive, in fact, that I would swap him out and he would be QB3 over Mike White if it was up to me. Elijah Riley's a cool story. The Jets have been chasing him for years. He was on the Eagles practice squad. They finally stole him last year in 2021. Ended up playing and starting in 7 games last year for the Jets. Unfortunately, he just didn't jive in the same way this offseason, and he gets cut as we go from 85 to 80. Kai Nakua, he's another one. It's a talented guy. He was a former safety. They transitioned to linebacker, and he was an interesting project, but ultimately just couldn't overcome the Quan Alexanders, Quincy Williams, some of their draft picks from last year, Hamza Nasruddin, Jamie and Sherwood, and all those guys. So he was fighting an uphill battle from the get-go. I think I answered everything there.
Yes, and Sherwood's looked really, really good in preseason, by the way. And
the Florham Park Stranglers, his nickname from the coaching staff.
Really?
There you go. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting name. Was he a serial killer?
yeah, that's true.
We were talking about Zach Wilson frozen body just 20 minutes ago, so there's a lot of things going on with that.
That's a good point.
No, but he's looked really, really good. He just has to stay healthy. I remember when the Jets, I think he was drafted from Florida State, so Florida
Which
State,
one?
right?
Yeah,
Sherwood
you're a football
Sherwood
school. You should know.
Hamza was Florida State.
It was Florida State, right?
Hamza was Florida State.
I'm sorry.
Jamie,
yes.
I think it was
Jamie
Auburn.
was
yeah.
Auburn.
Yeah.
Auburn, I'm sorry. So, and I think he was transitioned from safety to linebacker, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I think both guys are very important pieces to what the Jets could be in the future with their linebacker position, because a lot of people believe the weakest part of their defense is the linebacker position, not their front seven with Rankins and the guys that they have up there. And I expect Rankins to have a better season than he had last year because they actually have pass rushers in Carl Lawson. So let's go into Carl Lawson. What does he look like so far in OTAs and practices and even in preseason? Do you think that Carl Lawson is going to have that breakout year that we thought he was going to have last year, where everybody was saying he was the best player on the field?
I do believe. Last year, he was the best player on the football field. And, of course, unfortunately, joint practices, Green Bay Packers, freak injury, ruptures his Achilles, out for the year. Terrible. First year of a 3-year deal for $45 million. This offseason, obviously, they've played it incredibly, overly cautious. He was supposed to play, and Carl Lawson was pissed at him. He was supposed to play against the Philadelphia Eagles in the first preseason game, and Robert Saleh, right before he goes out, again, the whole plan all week is Carl Lawson's playing. Robert Saleh whispers to him right before he goes out, leave your helmet in the locker room, and Carl Lawson starts getting pissed off, like, what the hell do you mean? I want to play in the goddamn game, pal. And so Saleh's like, nah, we're just going to play it safe. Same thing, Falcons game. Okay, he'll play. Doesn't play again. And then now it looks like he will ultimately get that debut, somewhat unorthodox, in the final preseason game. That's normally when everyone plays their scrubs. But in this case, the Jets will be having their quote-unquote dress rehearsal for the Snoopy Bowl, the old New York Giants game.
How wonderful.
Coming up later this week. But in terms of the Carl Lawson question, again, they've been overly cautious with him. But again, the burst has been incredible. The explosion has still been there. That's what you're concerned with. When you're talking about guys coming off Achilles injuries, and again, 20 years ago, that's a career death nail when you get that injury. Now with the advancements of medical technology, it's not always the case, but even still, certain positions rely on that Achilles, that explosion that you need to get. And Carl Lawson, of course, it's a main part of his game to explode off the line of scrimmage to make those plays happen. He's never been a double-digit sack guy, but we talked about analytics earlier. The Jets were in love with the analytics. They were in love with the pressures, his ability to get in opposing quarterback's face, and they believe they could transition those pressures into actual tangible sacks. And they believe this is going to be the year. And he looks apart physically. Again, we're going to have to see ultimately whether he's the same player he was last year when we get to the regular season. But again, the same thing I said with Quinnen. So much talent around him, and second year in the solid system. I think we're going to get an explosive year out of Carl Lawson.
Carl Lawson's a big man. I actually met him. Yeah, he's a freak of nature, and his body and the way he works out,
up, baby,
swells up. I mean, did you ever see his workout plan? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually spoke to his trainer. His trainer joined me on my YouTube channel a couple weeks ago, Dr. Sharif Tabah, and he joined me and talked about all the crazy workouts behind the scenes. They went through the water workouts and things to rebuild that Achilles. And the problem was that he would schedule workouts with Carl, like, okay, 6 a.m., but Carl showed up at 3 a.m. and did his own workout before their scheduled workout.
Crazy.
And he said he was a freak and he couldn't get him out of the building. And he said, dude, come on. We have a process here. We have a plan. We have a rehab plan. And Carl also didn't care. He just wanted to keep getting back on the field. So he's a wild dude.
Good for him.